What's up, YouTube? How's everybody out there doing? So we're up to, I think it's section 16 of the SHSAT Review from cover to cover. I'm going over the 2017-2018 SHSAT Handbook. Anybody needs a copy, feel free to email me. My email is at the bottom, GregsTutoringNYC@gmail.com, which means that I'm Greg. So, okay, let me silence the mic here for a second. So I'm Greg. I'm a tutor in New York City, and actually I tutor in New Jersey and Connecticut and even in Boston as well. So I specialize in specialized high schools, including the SHSAT. I tutor a lot of kids in the SHSAT. In fact, I was so tired yesterday that I had to end the stream. I don't know if anybody caught that on the replay. I was just exhausted. The question took a lot of time, but I was done with it. So I went back to sleep for a while because I still had to do other stuff yesterday, including tutoring other kids. So, all right, so we're going to go under an hour. I'm not exactly sure. Might go half an hour. We're up to question, what are we up to question here? We're at question 99 is 114. So what I might do is about 7 or 8, and then we'll do a final part with 7 or 8 of them as well. Assuming YouTube goes along for the ride. Let's see if we're still live. Yeah, we seem to be. I see a few live streamers viewing out there, lurking out there. Feel free to say hi, and let's just jump into this. Any questions you guys have, please feel free to ask them. Hopefully about the problems I'm going over, but it doesn't have to be about that either. As long as we're dropping knowledge, that's great. So we did 97 last time, right? We're up to 98. All right, so again, I go get my normal scroll. Okay, this can't fit on the screen completely. So let's just start out by looking at the illustration, because that's the first step of the process anyway. So we have an illustration, the number of schools in 5 cities. So at the bottom says the city, so we have city names M, N, P, Q, and R. And on the left-hand side, it says we go from 0 to 10, the number of schools. So for instance, N has 5 schools, and R has 4. And sometimes they make us combine these. So if it asks like how many total schools does N and R have, it would be 5 plus 4 is 9. Sometimes they scale it up and they might say each school has 100 kids, so it'll be 900. Sometimes they're going to ask for the median, the range, all these kind of things like that. So the average, whatever. So all right, so that's our scenario there. So now we have the word problem. The graph above shows the number of schools per city for 5 small cities. City M and N each have 500 students per school. City P has 400 students per school. Cities Q and R each have 700 students per school. Which of these 5 cities has the greatest number of students? All right, so let me kind of redo that graph. On actual test day, you guys don't have to rewrite it because you're going to have it on your test paper. So they have M. I'm going to do the cheap version of this histogram. N, P, Q, and R. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to write on top of here. Instead of doing the histogram, I'm just going to write the number of schools of each one. That's 8, that's 5, that's 9, that's 6, and that's 4. And I decided this for 2 reasons. One is instead of wasting time on the stream drawing others, the others, as I read the problem, I'm realizing that they're only asking for the counts per each, where they mention the 500 and the 400 and the 700. So what I'm going to do is just go fill in what they told us. So this is the number of schools, right? And what we're going to fill in now is the students per school, right? So for 8, so actually we don't know. M and N each have 500 students. So all I'm going to do is fill that in on top of each one of them. So I'm taking the visual aspect of it and actually trying to make it more or less into a table if we were to do this kind of thing, all right? I'm actually rewriting the problem from a histogram to a table, basically. So M and N are 500 students. P has 400. Q and R each have 700. All right, so let me make sure this is all on the screen properly. Yeah, we see them, all right? And it says, which of the 5 cities has the greatest number of students? So there's going to be 2 optimizations we can make to this. What I'm going to do is scroll this up slightly, try to get the 4 answers on here, realizing I've cut off. Let me bring that right up to the 9, and I think we can get the, So there's only 4 answer choices. So there's some schools they're not looking for. But let's just go ahead and compute each one. So 500 times 8 is 4,000. And 500 times 5 is 2,500. So far, M is the largest. 9 times this gives us 3,600. So M is still largest. 7 times this gives us 4,200. And this gives us 2,800. All right? So at the moment, Q is the largest one, which would be G. What problem number are we at? Right, 98 would be G. So we notice, though, that it's only asking us about M, P, Q, and R. So actually, we don't even need to process N. Let's say N turned out to be largest, we don't care, because it's not asking us about those 4 ones. We also don't want to do N because these are both 500, and this is 8. So this 8 times 500 has to be bigger than 5 times 500. Okay? So we can toss that out. We have the same issue here with these 2. Since we have 6 times 700, 4 times 700, we can throw out R as well. So really, we only had to process the 3 choices there. And at that, we had to look at the answer choices to see which ones they gave us. So we didn't care if these 2 were actually larger. All right? And this was a quick enough computation that the distraction of worrying about which to remove may have been greater than actually just going up and computing them. These were seconds computations. But on other problems, you want to get those optimizations going so that you know which problems to cut out on that. All right, so what's the next question? Okay, 99. 99 could be super nasty or not too bad. And a lot of kids fluster with this problem. My phone keeps twisting. Give me 1 second. So a box contains 5 strawberry candies, 3 bananas. So when I start saying that, I just start writing it down. 5 strawberries, because chances are good we're going to need that. 3 bananas and 2 orange, and I immediately total up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2, 3, 5, 10. So there's 10 total. So that means we have 10 candies in totals. And I'll ask myself a question like, what's the chance of getting an orange? It's 2 out of 10. All right? So if Brandon selects 2 candies at random from this box without replacement, so he doesn't take it and put it back, okay? What is the probability that both candies are not banana? So if this is banana, then these 2 are the not bananas. These are the not Bs, right? So there's 7 of those. So that means the first candy picked is 7 out of 10, right? That now means one of these is taken, so there's 6. But it's not 6 out of 10 because now the total is 9. So the next candy is going to be 6 over 9, right? And that means we're going to get 42 over 90. And if we divide 6 into both of these, I mentioned again the other day about 6 times 15 coming up often on the tests. So just on this one test alone, it came up twice. So remember, memorize your perfect squares up to 20. Memorize 17 times 4, 5, and 6. Memorize 16 times 4, 5, and 6. Memorize 15 times 4, 5, and 6. And have those numbers readily and handily available, as well as numbers ending in 1, like 51 is divided by 3. Most kids don't know that. All right? So anyway, we can get 6 going into each of these. So we get 15, we get 7 15ths. So our answer for 99 should be C. It is. All right? So that's the straightforward way to do it. Let me just make sure we're running live. Again, I see a count in the viewership there for the live streamers. Please feel free to say hi. Please feel free to ask me questions about what I'm doing. Please feel free to guess your answer with your reason why. If you're on the replay, you can always pause the video. In fact, you can still pause it even when you're live. You can pause me, try to solve it, and come back to see what I did, and then catch up or whatever. I wouldn't recommend that, but of course, if you're live, you can replay the video as well. By the way, please like and subscribe. There's a lot of hard work, and it takes a lot of time and effort of mine, so I would appreciate if you did like it. It publicizes the stream, and my point here is to help people, so it'll help for more people doing that way. Same for subscribing. You can find out what other streams I'm doing. I do streams of all different sorts. So this is the straightforward, classic approach to solving this. There's kind of an inkling to solve this a different way, and actually you can solve it a different way, but kids kind of get led astray with that. And if we come back to this table here, let me just, let me get a new piece of paper, and I'll do this alternate version from anew. This way I'm going to end up needing a second piece of paper anyway. Which is that if we have 5 S, 3 banana, and 2 orange, so we ended up with 10 total, right? So there's a tendency to want to get the bananas, so that would be 3 out of 10 times 2 out of 9, right? Because if you take the first one, the chance is 3/10. If you take the second banana, you only have 2 out of 9 here left. All right, and then you get 6/90ths. So this is your chance at a banana. Okay, let me make sure this is fitting on the screen right. Yeah, it seems to be. So that's the chance of getting a banana. And then some kids will notice that, wait a second, if that's the chance of getting a banana, then everything else is the chance of not getting a banana. So they'll kind of do something like this. And this is equal to 90/90ths minus 6/90ths. And you're going to get 84/90ths. All right? And then what they're going to try to do is kind of mixing match things, because this isn't quite the answer, and they don't see the original solution I gave, so they kind of start fighting the answers back and forth. First of all, does one of these match into here? 6 goes into that. 10, 7, that's 84. No, none of them seems to match it, so kids will they'll recompute it, and then they'll try to beat it up again, and they'll try to force fit one of the answers into it, because they can't see the other alternative. And if they continued the problem, they would actually be able to solve this. So what the problem is 2 other missing pieces. So what you need to do is, this is the case where both are bananas. There's also cases where only one is a banana. In other words, I have 2 choices to pick. I can do a banana and not a banana, and not a banana and a banana as well. So what's the probability of each of these? Okay, so if the first one's a banana, right, that's 3 out of 10. And we don't care about the other one then. And then on this scenario, we don't care about the first one because it's an or. It's not an and anymore. Okay, up when we solved it the original way, we're doing the flip. So this is called Boolean Logic. And if people know Morgan's laws and all these kind of things like that, but it's just logic, and you don't need to formally know these things. Anyway, the chance of this is 0, right? This was 0 too, but we added it. So let me put that in, 0 plus. And this now is not 3/10, but 2/9, because we already took a different one. All right? So those are the 3 numbers we're going to add up now. The 6/90ths, the 3/10, and the 2/9. So we're going to get 6/90ths plus 3/10 plus 2/9. So if we normalize those by getting a common denominator, and obviously it's going to be 90, we got 6/90ths. This is going to be 90 plus something over 90, right? So this is times 9, so we get 27. This is times 10, so we get 20. So let me see if I did that right. We're going to get 47 plus this gives 53 over 90. Okay? So when I mentioned before, we subtracted from the 1 here. So this is the number. I'm going to write that over, 53 over 90. Sorry, so we're going to do 1 minus 53 over 90. And we're going to get 47 over 90. Right? We mentioned before about division by 6 again. So the denominators can be 15. Did I do something wrong? I may have done something wrong here. 47. Oh, no, we get 7. 6 times 7 is somehow, yeah. I believe I made a mistake in my calculation somewhere. And the point was that when you subtracted it, you ended up reducing this to the 7/15. Let me see what I did wrong here. Or it may not be worth calculating it, but that's the point. And the thing was to subtract it off from the 1 so that you could get those answers properly that way. Now I have a mental block on this. Let me see here. I'm guessing this was supposed to end up as 49, and then we would get the 7/15. So that should have been 51. So I made a mistake on one of these here. So one of these 3 fractions is wrong, and when we subtracted it out from everything, so what we're doing is taking the probability is 100%, and we're subtracting off the 3 scenarios where both a banana, or the first one's a banana, or the second one's a banana. And then when we get that. All right? All right. I'm kind of annoyed. Let me see here. Well, I'm going to move on because I'll put in the comments what the resolution is. I'm probably doing something really obvious. So that's 100. Let me make sure that that's showing on the screen. No, it's not. So let me drag this down a little bit. Or let me do this. Let me drag this over. Because that seems to be the better way to do it. Okay, so in the equation above, we have an equation w over x equals y equals z. So consider that our illustration. So they're probably going to do cross product, or they're going to ask us to solve for something. So there's really not much else going on there. We have 2 fractions being assigned to each other. So in the equation above, w, x, y, and z are positive numbers. So we know they're greater than 0, so they can't include 0, right? Which of these equations is equal to z? So really what we're going to do is just solve for z then. W over x equals y over z. So remember that we're doing that. So we need to solve for z. Okay? So there's a couple ways to do that. We can do the cross product. So we get wz equals xy, and then just divide w on both sides. So we get z equals xy over w, which should be h. Yes, 100/8. This is kind of a giveaway problem. Just make sure that you don't screw up. You can actually solve this in your head because you can actually mentally flip these two. So you get zx over yw, and then just multiply it. And then you get xy over w. But of course, don't do that. This is too much of a high-stakes test. All right? Okay, 101. We have an illustration of a number line. They're giving us 4 points, w, x, y, and z. W is minus 10, z is 8. So let me just draw this because at some point that's going to have to happen anyway. By the way, you're normally better off doing what they're doing. First of all, you're going to have the test paper, but if you happen to rewrite it, try to put your digits on your alphabet letters on the top and your numbers at the bottom. That way you're kind of not mixing them and you have kind of an open space for both kinds of setups. We have 0 here. We have x and we have y. All right, this is 8. This is minus 10. So somehow they're going to probably ask us for the distance here. And because this is 0 between these two, they're probably going to ask us for the length of xy or something like that. All right? So let's now jump into it. And it's not, I can see that it's not going to be as easy as that. So in the number line above, the points w, x, y, and z are integers, and that means they're whole numbers, right? And wx to w to xy to yz is 4 to 2 to 3. So we have wx to xy to yz is 4 to 2 to 3. And when normally we get something like this, we're going to total up the number of parts. So there's 4 wx parts, 2 xy parts, and 3 yz parts. So we get 9 there, right? 4 plus 2 plus 3 is 6 is 9. So we have 9 parts. Okay? And what is the value of wy? So we're trying to look for this. All right? So what we need to do is figure out the value of some of the other numbers as well. Right? So I would get the full length of this whole thing as well. So it means each part here is 9, is a ninth, right? So this is 4 ninths, this reflects 4 ninths, this reflects 2 ninths, and this reflects 3 ninths, right? Because we get 9 ninths altogether, so the wx is a ninth of whatever this is. Sorry, 4 ninths of this. xy is 2 ninths of whatever the whole length of this is, and yz is 3 ninths or a third of whatever the total length of this is. So to get the length of something, we do the max minus the min. So we're going to get 8 minus 10. And a minus of a minus is a plus, so we get 8 plus 10, and we get 18. All right? So let's fill in our numbers here. So if wx is 4 ninths, we're going to get 4 ninths of 18, right? We're going to divide, get 2, so that's 8. We can get 2 ninths of 18, and that's 4. And we can get 3 ninths of 18. That's 2, that gives us 6. So these add up to 18. So the numbers kind of work out that everything's in whole numbers, and our ratios are 1-to-1 when we finally get that all set up. So if WX is 8 and XY is 4, then WX has got to be 12. 8 plus 4 is 12. All right? And hopefully that's the answer. What question number was this? 101 is C, which is 12. Okay? There's probably other ways to do this as well. Based on Z, you could probably calculate some stuff as well. All right? You also know that this is 0. So let's get a number sense of this. That if this is minus 10 and this is 0 and it's a little past it, we know the answer has to be greater than 10. All right, so that rules out A. And the question is, because these are always not to scale, so Y is actually probably drawn too far over to the right. But even if it was drawn all the way up the way I did it more, because they drew the Y more over here. Okay? But you have to remember, unless it says it's to scale, it's not. So all we can know is that it's greater than 10, so the answer is not A. And we also know that it's not D, which is 18, because that's too far. Unless Y ends up being literally equal to Z. But that's not something that's a to scale issue. So the answer had to be B or C just by using spatial things and number sense computations. All right, let's see. Okay, 102. Wow, my computer fan is really blasting off. This must be making my computer sweat real hard. Hey, boss. Let's see, what do we have here? Is the math the average question in the 9th grade SHSAT? When you say no, or you answer my question, no, I'm only seeing your question for the first time now. Is the math the average question in the 9th grade SHSAT? Is this math the average question in the 9th grade SHSAT? Yes, it could be. First of all, I don't know which question you're referring to, but I'm assuming it may have been the last one even. Remember, the 9th grade SHSAT includes most of the 8th grade SHSAT. I hate to use averages and numbers, but consider the 8th grade SHSAT has about 20% 9th grade questions. That might be a better way to say it. All right? So that if you take the 9th grade SHSAT, most of it's going to be 8th grade SHSAT questions, even if it's half. So the 9th grade SHSAT is not just subtract all 8th grade stuff and everything added into is strictly 9th grade stuff. Consider the 9th grade SHSAT a superset of the 8th grade SHSAT, both in the ELA section and in the math section. So what they basically do is take 20% of the questions away or 30% of the questions away and add higher level problems into that. All right? I don't know if you're still out there. Which makes it a little whammy. What they're trying to do is always keep this confusing and mysterious. They don't give a topic list. By the way, guys, I do provide a list of topics on that. You know what? Let me post a link in here while we're talking about this. So this is a math topic list video. Is that? And this is an ELA topic list video. It's worth checking both of these out. And of course, subscribing to my channel so that you guys are kept up with a lot of things like that. Is the 8th grade SHSAT? Is this for 8th grade SHSAT or 9th grade SHSAT? Currently, this is 8th grade SHSAT, but I've also done other streams where I want to make it clear that if you're doing, see, the kids who take the 9th grade SHSAT, they're always like, what's the 9th grade? What's the 9th grade? What's the 9th grade? But most of the tests are still the 8th grade SHSAT. And then when we do a table flip, the 8th grade SHSATers should still look at the 9th grade SHSAT stuff. First of all, because they can always throw a harder question into the 8th grade SHSAT. And then this question's right at the borderline, which is 8th or which is 9. It's it's kind of hard enough to almost be a ninth grade, but more easy to almost be an eighth grade one. So in my opinion, a ninth grade SHSAT should study both sections, and an eighth grade SHSAT should also study both sections. Okay? And just if you're doing the eighth grade, just avoid the super top, the top stuff, because they can both have aspects of trigonometry, which is triangles in them. They can both have aspects of angles, because even doing angles on a triangle, you guys should know that quadrilateral has 360 and a triangle has 180. And if they give you an angle and ask you to figure out another angle, there's certain things you should be able to figure out, whether it's eighth grade or ninth grade SHSAT. And by the way, just to give the example, sometimes in grade 8 they'll throw something in like 2W equals 8W plus 10 or something like that. And all ninth graders and all eighth graders should be able to do this. In fact, even kids younger than that should be able to do it, right? You just subtract the W's and get rid of the constant and so on. So there's ways to compute all these things. So you could argue, oh, that's an easy question. Well, that's my point. That's my point. So they mix and match a lot of these often. So we're not always sure what's going to exactly be on what test. And again, they do this on purpose. So I like to think of it that an eighth grader should know all the ninth grade material as well, because the material that's ninth grade, it's not super duper ninth grade. They're not going into the top abyss of geometry and trigonometry and so on and stuff like that. Even if this was like SOHCAHTOA, whatever that is, right? You don't really need to know that. That's not required. So you may have a problem that is best solved by SOHCAHTOA. So a ninth grader might use it if that's applicable for the ninth grade test. But an eighth grader who doesn't know SOHCAHTOA, they might still give the question, but it has an alternative solution. So if you guys are following my streams, I'm always giving alternative solutions. I just did in that banana problem. And that's one reason why I'm giving it, because sometimes it applies to grade 8, sometimes it applies to grade 9, and sometimes it's just worth knowing the alternative to add to your kind of solution toolkit. And also, the good thing about an alternative is that you have a way of double checking your answer. Because what happens often is sometimes, let's say you end up, I don't do the computation, but W equals -2 or something like that. Let's say you made a mistake. So the problem is some kids double check it the exactly same way, and they're still going to get the same wrong answer. What you want to do it is a completely different way, so that you verify that the -2 probably is the answer. There's no guarantees here. So if you're an eighth grader, like for instance, they almost never give anything involving SOHCAHTOA on the eighth grade test. But if you're an eighth grader who happens to know it, and you can apply that to the eighth grade solution, go for it, right? All they care about is what is on your bubble sheet, not how you did it. And part of the SHSAT is not so much that it's asking you about a certain feature list, like is it going to give us a calculus question, or is it going to ask for the sine of an angle or something like that. That's not what the SHSAT's about. The SHSAT's about being creative thinking when you have a novel problem in front of you. Are you intellectually astute enough and mathematically astute enough as well, obviously, to use the knowledge you already have, right? Again, that's what separates us from, say, the state test. The state test is more like asking you, we taught you sine, can you use sine, right? Whereas here it's different. They may give you a word problem where you have to like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And then you realize, oh, I need to use the square root or something like that, all right? So it's an incomplete answer. So I always like to suggest the ninth graders should do all the eighth graders stuff. And a lot of ninth graders throw that out the window. Are they going up to Algebra 1 and Geometry? Yes, they're going further than that. But they don't go all the way to the end of the classes. So in other words, you don't need to know the whole integrated algebra regions, for instance. But there's enough algebra that's there. And if you happen to know it, then you're ahead of the pack. So if you already took the integrated algebra class in middle school, then you're way ahead of the pack. No, they're not going to go as far as Algebra 2, but that said, they don't tell us that. It's all just an open-end ended, you're walking into a spooky house, They're more keen on you solving problems in unique ways than giving you extreme solution mechanisms, which you have to figure out. So, for instance, like they may give you a quadratic, even in grade 8, they may give you something that involves the quadratic equation, but you don't have to solve the quadratic equation to do it. There's other ways to solve quadratics. Okay? Because even if they were to give you something like, x squared equals 9, that's a quadratic. Because what we have is x squared minus 0x minus some 0. So that's all 3 terms for that. But most people say, I wouldn't use the quadratic formula to solve this. You would just figure out that it's 3 and minus 3 right there. Okay, so that's part of what my point is. So they're not going to say it has to be the quadratic formula. But a question like what's the value of x on the SHSAT, especially based on a word problem, this is fully game. So now if they start at a minimum like this, they can keep adding stuff onto it. All right? So that's part of what's going on here. So again, a grade 9er, most grade 9ers discount. I'm talking about, when I say grade 9er, I'm talking about the grade 9 SHSAT versus the grade 8 SHSAT. So most people taking the grade 9 SHSAT discount all the grade 8 issues. And you shouldn't, because most of the grade 9 SHSAT is grade 8 questions. The grade 8 SHSAT questions. And again, if you're taking the grade 8 SHSAT, then you want to push yourself to the limit, because you don't know how hard or accelerated some of the questions are going to be. So you should do all the grade 8 SHSAT prep plus the grade 9 SHSAT prep. Throw that in there, right? Okay. All right. So where are we? Let me keep track of time here too. So 41 minutes. All right, I'm going to do 1 or 2 more problems. So 102. So hopefully I answered that, guys. If there's still questions about it, feel free to keep asking. That's no problem. And you can do it in the comments afterwards, after the video is over as well. And email me too if you want as well. So 102, a metal plate. Let me get a new piece of paper. A metal plate used in an electronic device must have a thickness of 0.02 inches. What is the with an allowable error of 1%? Give me 1 second, because I'm talking too much. Do you the cutoff score to pass the test? Do you know the cutoff score to pass the test? There is no cutoff score to pass the test. It's dynamic and it happens every year. This is something I should have mentioned in the scoring video I just did. I don't know if you guys had seen that. If you haven't seen that, definitely look at it. I just did a video called something like Deep, Dark, SHSAT Scoring Secrets. Give me 1 second. Where I talk a lot about how scoring works. And I should have mentioned that the cutoff, first of all. The cutoff is based on, first of all, there's 2 curves applied to the test. So each question is worth a certain number of points. And there's once those are tallied up, there's 2 curves applied. One is to normalize it across all the SHSAT tests, and the other is to base it on a scale for you guys. Give me 1 second still. I'm trying to look for that video. And so what happens is once everybody's score is determined, they put them in rank order, and the rank order is whoever gets the highest score is the first shot. Whoever gets the second highest score gets the second shot, and so on. And then once they do that, that's how they fill the seats up. So if you got like 700, then you get to pick. Let's say you pick Stuyvesant. And if you got a 699, then you get to pick. And they just keep doing that until all the seats fill up. So let's say the first 100, let's say there's only 100 seats available for Stuyvesant. Then the first 100 kids are going to get those seats. So then it doesn't matter what your score was, right? So you may have, let's say there was the one kid who got 700 and 99 kids who got 699, right? So that means all the seats filled up for Stuyvesant with only two scores, 700 and 699. So that means if you got a 698, which is excellent, a super duper excellent score, you can't get into Stuyvesant anymore because its cutoff score is now 699, right? And then what they're going to do is pick your second choice school based on that, because that school is no longer available to be filled up. All right, so here's the link to the deep dark SHSAT scoring secrets. So then they'll go to the next school. So each school has its own cutoff score based on this round robin ranking order process that occurs. So it's very confusing, it's very complicated, it's very detailed. So that said, last year's cutoff score was 492, I think it was. And you normally want to shoot for over a 500. And again, it changes from year to year to year to year. That's why the predictions are hard. And there's wiggle room in it. It can go down to 470, and it can go up to like 520. So there's like a 50-point wiggle room just in the cutoff scores from year to year to year. And I'm talking about the lowest cutoff score. But between SHSAT high schools, there's still enough wiggle room there too. No, you don't get to choose only one school. You can choose all of them, but you have to prioritize them. So if you get the top score, they're going to look at your first choice. If your first choice is filled up, then they're going to look at your second choice. And they're going to do that for every kid based on each cutoff score, each score that you got. So for argument's sake, if kid 1 got 700 and put STY, right? And kid 2 got 698 and put Brooklyn Tech, and kid 3 got 698 and put STY again, right? So that's how they're going to do it. But let's say that it's not the first one of us 100 in front, 102, 103, right? And that we don't care where you're positioned or what your score is, and so let's say there were 3 kids who put STY, and for the second choice, the 102nd kid put this one. So let's say this kid gets the last Stuyvesant seat. So now you're next in turn, despite what your score is. You can't get a STY seat anymore because it filled up. So what they're going to do is go to your second choice school and say, is there any seats left for Brooklyn Tech? So you can put from 0 to all 8 schools, right? There's 8 SHSAT schools. And you rank them on the bubble sheet. There's a bubble sheet that you put your answers in. Well, before the test starts, you're going to rank all your orders. There's a bubble sheet with a bunch of columns. If you look in student handbook, this is all in there, all right? And it's going to just round robin. It's going to round robin up and down here this way based on your rank, and then round robin that way across your choices until it finds a hit. So your order has to be carefully determined. And there's patterns that happen from year to year to year. Like put in Stuyvesant, let's say you put all 8 choices, it wouldn't make sense to put Stuyvesant last. Because that's a highly sought after school, and its cutoff score is normally higher than all the others. All right, so that would not be a good choice to do. I put 492 here, I never hit enter. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of logic here that has to happen on this testing. That's why I keep mentioning, a lot of you guys go into tutoring centers and so on, and you're just being processed like droids. And that is not the way to approach this test. I know kids who have taken 30, 40, 50 sample tests. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely utterly ridiculous. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of energy. That is not using your strengths and weaknesses to pass this test. You know, if your goal is to maybe get 100% on the test, all 57 questions right, then maybe, yeah, you should be doing more testing. But if your goal is just to get into STI, you don't need to do that. And there's a whole bunch of different aspects to acing this test, which is understanding how it's scored, understanding the cutoff scores. That was the point of that last SHSAT scoring secret video. But I'm going to do a part 2 to that, by the way, guys. I'm extending the program to add more features. It's also going to put more averaging in that I had in the past. I added at least one more model to do things. I added so that it, based on your score, it can give you a prediction which specialized high school you might get into. And I also going to add that into the discovery section, so that if you don't meet the cutoff, there's a second shot for students in need. And there's a different set of cutoff scores that the DOE makes for those a couple of weeks after they release the cutoff information score stuff. So my program is also going to do a calculation based on that and make a prediction whether which specialized high schools you might be able to get into for the discovery program as well. And I added a whole bunch of other features as well, and I'm still going to add a few more. So I'm going to do a second video to this deep SHSAT scoring secrets. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do, where we spent a bit of time on other things, which is just fine. I'm going to end this now. So if you guys have any further things, please ask them. I'll just talk for a couple of minutes or whatever more. I won't do any more problems at this point. We'll just continue the other problems on through the week. There's always another stream to do. There's always another problem to solve. So please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. And feel free to email me at any time. You could also do video suggestions. I do a whole bunch of live streams. I just don't go over handbooks. I do a whole bunch of different kinds of streams. Sometimes they're philosophical. Sometimes they're just lightning rounds to do a certain little topic. Sometimes there's stuff like the handbook here. Sometimes I'll theme it, maybe just about word problems. Sometimes it'll be about how to register for the test. There's a whole bunch of different stuff I have here. Look through my videos. And all right, if nobody has anything else, peace out, people. Have a great day.